So it is. Yeah, you're recording. So it is. Yeah, you're recording. So it is. Yeah. That way it's impossible for me to give a synopsis for it. Today we watched a movie called Captain America, but it's not the one that people saw in theaters. It's the one from 1979 that was probably a television special. Connor, what is the plot of Captain America 1979?
Start again on that intro, I wasn't feeling it.
Today we watched Captain America, the 1979 movie that is about the same character that's in the Marvel movies that are so popular lately. Today we watched Captain America, the direct-to-TV 1979 movie. Connor, tell us a little bit about the movie Captain America.
Captain America was a movie about a guy named Steve Rogers, and rather than telling the traditional origin story of Captain America that every other form of media ever has, they decided that this version of Captain America would be kind of a pussy, and he would act like a retard the whole time. He would act like a dumbass the whole time.
And also he's the son of the original Captain America from World War II.
Well, let me get to that, but yes. Anyway, Captain Steve Rogers comes in and he finds his dad dead. His dad tells him where the plans are, where the film is. And the film basically somehow tells these villains how to create a nuclear bomb. And the plan is to make the villain's plan is to make a nuclear bomb so that they can bomb some bank. And if they bomb out the bank, they'll get like $1 billion because the gold won't be disintegrated by the nuclear bomb. And they'll grab the gold. So the plan is that they'll nuke the place, kill a whole bunch of people, and steal all the gold. But to do this, they have to kill Captain America's dad, and they try and find the film. But they can't find the film because the film is hidden. But meanwhile, they try and kill Steve Rogers and his family the whole time. Finally, they end up murking Steve Rogers almost, but they use the flag serum on it, which is just the superhero. It's the super soldier syndrome, except they call it the flag syndrome or serum. That's the word I was looking for. It's the super soldier serum. And basically, they fucking use it on him, and he's like, I'm gonna be the new Captain America. And this Captain America is like a sketch artist as well, so he sketches out the costume. He's like, make this costume for me, Mr. Man. Mr. Man's like, no, I'm not gonna make that costume for you because you're more like a stunt bike driver. So they make him like this Evel Knievel style costume with like a clear, like fucking plastic shield that's made out of like the same shit as like this bottle of
his shield is
Calypso. It's like made out of like the same plastic as this Calypso
When
bottle.
you think of Captain America's shield, you think like the red and white going into the center with the star.
Nah, this shit's
But in this
see-through.
movie, the white sections of his shield are completely see-through, and it's obviously just a cheap plastic disc. Like when he throws it at people, it'll like bend as it
Well,
makes
no,
contact
like he
and
like
shit.
will grab it and it'll bend. But anyways, Evel Knievel, Captain America then starts stunt biking around, and he goes off like he's like driving that stunt bike that he's testing out, and he's like, this is pretty rad actually, I'm down to be Captain America. And then he's going and he's testing out his stunt bike, and all of a sudden this helicopter's after him because somehow the helicopter knew that he was Captain America now and knew that he was on the stunt bike. So then there's these man-made jumps, literally like man-made jumps. Like here, there's a clip probably.
It's a dirt bike track that they repurposed for the movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's like Captain America themed jumps, and he's like jumping over these jumps, and eventually he somehow like hijacks the helicopter and holds the guy at shotgun gunpoint because everybody only has like civilian class shotguns the whole time, and they're holding them at each other. And he ends up figuring out about the nuclear bomb, so they're like, well, we'll put it into the computer. So then the guy fucking literally like call dial-ups like the fucking Siri operator, who's like, this is where the nuclear semi-truck is, and then they go after it and they get the guy with the nuclear bomb and they kill him, and then that's it. That's the whole movie. Captain America ends up getting him, and he's like, okay. And then they give him a more comic accurate Captain Captain America costume, but it's got like the motorcycle helmet and shit.
Yeah, the costume at the end isn't too bad, but he's got like a motorcycle helmet with a visor.
Yeah, it's kind of like
stuff, so it's kind of like.
It begs the question why that wasn't just his costume the whole time, because he legitimately, this was like Evel Knievel, the action movie discount edition, more so than like Captain America in any means.
Yeah, it's strange.
It was really capturing like 70s hype at the time. Every building was wood grain, like out the ass. Like this movie is probably one of the most dated movies
There's
I've
an
ever
entire
seen.
scene where Captain America's at the beach with a girl who's either his girlfriend or his sister. I couldn't tell.
No, that was his girlfriend. That was like the lab assistant from the start of the movie. That's like, you should do the flag serum. He's like, nah, and then for some reason, like the next scene, he's like,
his love interest and sister look very similar.
They do.
But basically, when they're on the beach, there's like a Shake Shack on the beach, and he's like talking to the guy, and he's like, wow, that's so radical. And then there's people like waxing their surfboards, and Captain America's talking to his sister / girlfriend, and he's like, I want to boink you, but you're my sister. And then the guy comes over and he's like, flag serum. And they're kind of like standing around, and there's like people surfing and stuff, and like fucking Beach Boys music playing in the background. And the movie, they were too cheap to make like an actual soundtrack for it, so they just bought some porn music and interlaced it throughout the entire movie.
It was like wow chicka wow wow type porn music. Like it was some like fucking like TV sitcom making like porno jokes. And the two craziest things about this whole movie, like Captain America didn't act in character. It's kind of implied like his dad was like the real Captain America, or they called him Captain America. I don't know if he was really a superhero, because it was like half implied he was literally Captain America, but I couldn't tell if they meant like literally he was Captain America, like a more traditional comic book Captain America, or if he was like just called Captain America as like a nickname because he's so patriotic.
He took the super serum, the flag serum, and he got superpowers, but they don't go into real depth about what exactly it was he did. They just he tried to help people.
They don't go into depth what he did. I thought you were talking about what the powers were.
No.
Because the powers were pretty much standard Captain America. Like he was stronger, he could hear better, and all that dumb shit.
Yeah, he was just like a better person, basically.
But the other big couple things I want to point out is like what I was trying to say is like basically Steve Rogers was not really like the standard Steve Rogers, where Steve Rogers was really heroic. He was doing anything, not really just for his country, but Captain America is more about fighting for the citizens of his country. He doesn't really care to be like a government agent. He's more about doing what he thinks right in the way of saving his country. So Captain America was really patriotic. This guy kind of just like almost died, got the powers, and then fucking what's his face, Mr. Scientist Man, hoaxed him into becoming a superhero. And he's like, well, if I get a free motorcycle out of it. And then the biggest flaw with this whole fucking movie is the fucking cheesy ass van he has at the start. Like, come on.
Well, you're missing another important aspect of his character.
The main actor was stoned the entire fucking movie.
No, not that.
He did look
part of the problem is, like you pointed out, Captain America is supposed to be a weak guy who's patriotic. He becomes a strong patriotic guy, but in this one,
and then has his morals intact.
He's a strong surfer dude who becomes an even stronger surfer dude. And he drives a drug van around, and the drug van shoots out a motorcycle, and the motorcycle's more important than the shield, but his shield is literally attached as the front windshield of his motorcycle.
The shield's pretty much just to say like, no, this isn't a cheap play on Evel Knievel, because Evel Knievel was more expensive than Captain America in the 70s. This is Captain America.
And also, I'm not really sure who the villains were. Like, I understand their motives of
they were just
getting a nuclear bomb to blow up a bank or something, but like the villains have no real
it was kind of the old
school. They're just kind of like evil.
Well,
like rich people.
They're evil guys.
Rich people who want to get even richer.
When you think about it, their plan really makes no sense, because
they're pretty much
like once they actually got the film, their plan at that point made no sense, because like they decided to kidnap Steve Rogers' girlfriend and sister for no fucking reason.
The villains in this movie are pretty much on the level of Austin Power villains. They're like
Sort
Dr.
of,
Evil,
yeah.
but even less character. It's like,
yeah, no, they kind of had that going for them, but basically they continued to kind of antagonize Steve Rogers, when in reality, like, what's the point in doing that when they could literally have made the nuclear bomb, not kidnapped anybody? Like, Steve Rogers probably wouldn't have even, like, looked into it in that extent, and without, like, the kidnapping of the girlfriend and his sister, Steve Rogers really had no call to action, which means they would have succeeded. I get they're evil and they're assholes, so it kind of makes sense.
yeah,
But
Steve Rogers
overall,
was a selfish asshole in this movie. He wasn't like...
no, he wasn't really a superhero.
He was doing it so that he could get laid by his sister.
Yeah, no, he kind of just did what he did for fun, but like he kind of was like, nah, but then eventually he's like, I guess I'll do it, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Steve Rogers' motivation was pretty much the most unclear thing ever. The villains were pretty fucking weak. They kind of felt like villains you'd see in, like, Perry Mason or Get Smart or some shit. Some, like, fucking old school, like, TV drama villains.
Actually, they were
was,
pretty
like,
much a straight rip-off of Goldfinger, if you think about it. They're gonna get the thing, blow up the bank, and get the money. That's their entire plan.
Yeah.
That's their entire characterization. They don't give a shit about nothing else except getting their hands on the gold. The only difference is that Goldfinger's a good movie.
No, I don't disagree with that. That's pretty more or less it. Like,
It's pretty much a straight rip-off.
honestly, the thing is the reason this movie feels really dated is they tried to put Captain America in modern times as of 1979, and everything looks really fucking dated because of that. But yes, everything looks really fucking dated, like it's 1979, and I get at the time it was probably modern and pretty chic looking. I get it's direct to TV, so it's not gonna have the best budget, but it really just felt like they were trying to modernize Captain America, and it's hard to really judge this with a critical eye because you do gotta keep in mind it was the 70s, and what they were trying to do was make like a Captain America for the quote-unquote modern times, which was the 70s, and honestly on a TV budget back in the day it would be pretty much impossible to get a good Captain America story, because you do kind of gotta include the, like, all of his core villains, his core catalog, at least as of the 70s, because really in the 60s Captain America was more or less just an Avengers character, but all the villains he fought solo in the 60s were more or less based around his time in World War II. So as of the time in Captain America's catalog, there wasn't really much you could do without doing that 40s stuff. So, I mean, it was an interesting play, showing this is more like Steve Rogers' son. Like, you could almost see like his dad being the original Captain America rather than him dying at the end of World War II or being frozen at the end. Perhaps he just kind of spent his days growing old and his son was the natural successor. So in a way I can kind of see how this is almost like an alternate sequel to Captain America. But the main problem with this movie, more so than anything, even like past the budget and stuff, is it's really dated. It's one of those movies where it's really fucking hard to watch because it's so dated. And that's like the same problem with the 90s Captain America. Not to the same extent, because the 90s Captain America was more faithful to the source material, but you really got a big problem where it's like, you modernize it, it's gonna look dated because it's been almost 40 years since the movie came out. And if you do the original story, it would hold up better, but it wasn't really feasible. You couldn't really do that good at the time. And at the time too, TV and movies, when they adapted superheroes, generally could give a fuckless shit about like the actual like villains and stuff. They kind of just made up what they made up. Per point, almost every serial of the 40s, like you look at like the Batman serials from the 40s, they weren't tossing the Joker in there. They were fucking putting some racist ass Fu Manchu type of character.
Yeah,
Superman fought the Mole Men. Like, it was just whatever the fuck.
It was
they
whatever
wanted
was
to talk
easy and convenient for the writers,
Yeah.
because they figured that the movie would only appeal to a younger audience, so they didn't have to try as hard. I mean, that's essentially the idea behind the entire just make the guy some sort of like businessman
whole appeal of this movie now is it's cheesy 70s shit, but it's really hard to grade in this day and age because it's like, maybe if I watched it back in the 70s, being used to the lower budgets, like everything has high production values now. If you don't have high production value, your movie's not going to be put out to this extent, but modern technology means I could have filmed a very similar movie to this. Like, if I wanted to essentially remake this movie with CGI, I could probably pretty easily remake more or less this movie on like a $40,000 budget nowadays, where this probably back in the day costed $1 or $2 million. It's just one of those things where with advanced technology, it just makes the thing look really cheap and dated, when at the time, honestly, for a TV movie, it was what it was. I mean, you kind of got like a Dukes of Hazzard type feel with it, where it's a lot of like stunt car racing and stuff. Yeah. But I mean, as a fan of Captain America, pretty fair amount of comic fan, it doesn't really feel like it honors anything in the way of its legacy, and it's kind of hard to watch. But
yeah, it's not.
Maybe watching it in the 70s, I could see where it would be appealing. Especially, you gotta keep in mind, this was also a TV movie. Like, this wasn't really meant, or like a cheap movie. It wasn't meant to be like some big box office thing. It was a turn and burn type movie.
Yeah, it kind of falls out of the realm of an adaptation.
It's kind of its own thing.
It's really loose on the adaptation. It's like, obviously there are elements to it, like the super soldier serum, even though it's called something different, and Captain America himself, and
flag syndrome or whatever,
the shield,
flag serum.
The shield a little bit, but
yeah.
like, for the most part, it's just some random guy on a motorcycle beating up random assholes who are trying to rob a bank
For $1 billion.
But I think we've talked about this movie a bit enough. So let's do some final
all in all,
thoughts.
yeah.
What did you think of this movie, Connor?
You know, I already pretty much covered exactly what I thought about this movie.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna wrap this up, like I said previously, like, it is what it is. It's really hard to grade on an efficient scale. If I had to go by modern day, not even considering tech limitations at the time and stuff, and just looking at it as enjoyable today, I couldn't really recommend this to your everyday like superhero movie fanatic. Like, if I'm the type of guy that wants to watch like just extra Captain America movies because I really like Winter Soldier and stuff, this doesn't stand up to modern day filmmaking. But you gotta keep in mind, it is what it is at the time, and at the time superheroes weren't lucrative, so people didn't put money into superheroes at the time, because at the time it was just kid stuff. The comics were supposed to be like disposable mediums at the time. It was just kind of made for children. It wasn't like something that was all too serious, so I mean, you gotta keep that all in mind. But you know, some of the acting was kind of choppy, but it felt like it kind of did what it tried to do, which wasn't really make Captain America, but kind of do its own thing in the modern time of the day. So, I mean, I wouldn't really recommend it if you're looking for a Captain America movie, but if you're just kind of looking for an interesting 70s period piece, not really period piece because it came out at the time, but an interesting relic of the 70s, it's a fascinating enough movie. Its running time is only 84 minutes, so it's not incredibly long. I mean, I would suggest it if you're kind of curious, but if you're looking for some more Captain America content because you're such a big fan of the Marvel movies or whatever the hell, you're not going to find any enjoyment in this movie at all.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. The movie is boring. Like, I don't like to just criticize a movie as boring, but for the most part, this is one of those movies where it's obviously low budget even for the time, where it's kind of like most of the movie is taken out by Steve Rogers Jr. or whatever, Steve Rogers, talking to people about how he doesn't want to be Captain America. There's one little action scene at the start, and then up until pretty much the end, like in the last 30 minutes, you got the motorcycle chase where he's being chased by the helicopter and he goes off the same jump 4 times. And then there's a scene where a stuntman walks across the roof of a semi-truck that's moving.
That scene was kind of cool.
which is it's a decent stunt. I mean, to get on an actual moving semi truck, it's obvious that it was an actual semi truck that he was walking on. That's kind of impressive in itself, but at the same time, it's like after that, the climax is he gets on the semi truck, he gets inside the semi truck, he punches a guy, knocks him out, and the movie ends. Like,
Yeah,
it's
more or
not.
less.
The movie falls in a gray area between like being good, where it's like there's entertainment value to it as like something that is well crafted, where it's like fun to watch or like has good action, and but it also falls between that and like being boring, where most of the movie is nothing happening. A lot of the movie is just like weird 70s people talking to each other or sitting on the beach. It doesn't even really fall into the funny bad category, where like it's not so extremely bad that it's laughable. It's just like it's an obviously cheap TV movie that cashes in on the Captain America property and doesn't really do anything with it. It's like he never really does anything with his shield. He mostly just does motorcycle stunts. It's like this easily could have just been called like Knight Rider Bike Edition or like whatever. It's
Evil.
someone who likes Captain America probably won't get anything out of this. Someone looking to laugh at a crappy movie won't get anything out of this. For the most part, the movie is just like bland and dull, and it's not even. There's just no real entertainment value to it. It's kind of just like an hour and 20 minutes down the drain, and that's really kind of just the best way to sum up the movie, in my opinion.
More or less.
Gotta figure out a way to make outros. Some sort of outro statement.
Anyway, so
I'll
bottom.
cut it. And then we'll
So bottom line, Captain America kind of sucked.